Thanks to all of you to have joined us for this webinar today. The objective is to share with you the new developments that we have made at Algonomia and that we have decided to share completely openly. And so this development is the Open Tax Calendar. As a reminder for those of you who do not know us and do not know what we have been doing in the past years. So my name is Walid Eljaafari. I'm the CEO and lead data scientist at Algonomia. So I'm a trained engineer, but with a lot of experience in mathematics, but I also did some law and tax law on the side with experiences at Deloitte and PwC a few years ago. And then I started Algonomia with some of my colleagues because we wanted to build SaaS solutions to digitize the tax departments of multinational corporations. And so over the years, we have gathered some very impressive clients, most of them in France, like the Groupe Renault, Schneider Electric, and some others. And we have also been able to partner with Deloitte since 2018 to help these clients and with some academic institutions. And this year, we have decided to found the Open Tax Society because of the values that we push forward of openness with regard to tax, but we are going to dive deeper in this topic very shortly. So the presentation of today will be very simple and very clear. The first elements that we're going to discuss are the reason why we are building the Open Tax Calendar and why we believe that through building the Open Tax Calendar, we are contributing in a very important way to the tax community. Then we are going to explain why we built the Open Tax Calendar the way we did and how it has been built and why we decided to make it as a collaborative initiative instead of paid project or product, if you want. Then, of course, you're going to have a small and short demo because the idea is that you will have access to it anyways. Normally, you will have access to it at the end of the session so that you are able to look at the various data. Right now, it's not available. It's only going to be available either directly at the end of the presentation or shortly after. After the demo, I'm going to discuss the next steps. So what other developments are coming and what other open tax initiatives we may have and what will be the legal framework and how you can get involved if you want. And finally, there will be an open Q&A session. So you will have the ability to ask questions in the chat and I will answer some of them. And I have some annexes if you want to dive into the detail of the data structure that we have for the Open Tax Calendar, but that's for the Q&A session if need be. So let's dive more precisely into why we have built the Open Tax Calendar. So as you can see, we have built at Algonomia certain products, so service offerings for multinational enterprises, most notably an application called CTC Leaf, which purpose is to automate the feeding of tax calendars and tax due dates for multinational corporations. So the idea is to select a data source, to automate the treatment of this data source and inject as tasks in the agenda and tasks in the workflow of the various users in each entity, these tasks so that you can monitor that they are actually performing them in due time. This integrates completely in the entire solution ecosystem that we are proposing to our clients. And for those who do not know much about us, our ecosystem revolves around one central platform that allows to organize tasks and processes, collect data either from manual inputs, Excel imports, or ERP connections, and the collection also of attached documents and files to treat. As you are able to organize this workflow manager, you can, of course, import tasks. You can set them manually and distribute them around your perimeter, or you can generate them if you have some automated tests that are supposed to trigger these tasks. But CTC Leaf, the application I just talked about, its purpose is to be able to feed automatically this workflow based on an external data source. And finally, once the data are collected, of course, we have various applications, which purpose is this time to automate the transfer pricing, the TP documentation, to automate the Pillar 2 computation now, and various other elements. Now, the issue that we had with this is the selection of the right data source. How do we recommend a data source to our clients to automate the tax workflow? So, of course, throughout our career, we have been in contact with various data sources. The most well-known one, or the best-known ones, are Bloomberg Tax and IBFD, which are very research-oriented. You are able to find almost anything in it. They are quite expensive, of course, but if you research an information, it is likely that you will find it there. The problem is that from our standpoint as a startup, it is quite expensive, and linking the ability for our clients to be able to automate the tax calendar to pay a subscription to these services makes it a bit complicated to sell this type of solution. And so it was one of the limits. The other limit is that the content is also very research oriented. So basically, it's a lot of text that has not a very structured format. So it's very difficult to automate its treatment using an algorithm to automate tasks and decides whether or not a given entity or a given jurisdiction has to be targeted by such tasks. This type of issues I just described with text is something that is also common to the other types of sources that exist. So there is no blame to put on Bloomberg Tax and IBFD there. It's just the use cases that was not the same. You have also these types of legal research platform in each jurisdictions. A lot of time they are more legal oriented than tax oriented, but you can find tax case law inside and the references that you may need. And there are declinations of these bases in each jurisdictions. And these form the commercial, if you want, databases to which you can look for data. But sadly, it is very complicated to use them for automation. On the other side, you have also a lot of content that is produced by the major consulting firms and the major law firms that are using these as a marketing tool in some ways, but in the end, they serve also the needs of their clients. It's very interesting, and they create value for their clients to show their competencies and to show that they are fit to give them the advisory and the consulting services that they provide. And through that, they generate most of the time PDFs with the features of the tax jurisdictions for which they are writing. And some of them, the one that I know is the EY newsletter, also send updates about the content of each jurisdiction's tax law that is most important for different areas. You also have Deloitte Deets that gives you detailed description of each jurisdiction in a single place. So it's very interesting, and you have a lot of information that you can manage. They are free, but the problem is that they come as a form of PDFs, so it's even a bit harder to treat. Finally, there are also some providers that are actually selling this ability to set up compliance calendars and to integrate these data in the services that they sell. The ones that we have mostly talked to are TPA Global, which are very interesting people. We had nice discussions with them, and we've worked with them on some projects. And what we've noticed is that the structure that they had wasn't completely aligned with the the width of the use case that we wanted to be able to tackle, but they had already internal structured database that they have built by themselves. They don't sell it per se, but they have the ability to provide it during the services for their clients. It's also the case for some of the big four, most notably Deloitte, and we're going to talk about it later too. They build also inside of them a little bit more structured databases to serve the compliance monitoring of their clients. And finally, and that may be also the most surprising for you, there are also the tax administrations that produce this type of data. There are the country profiles from the OECD that look a lot like what the deeds from Deloitte looks. So it's a PDFs for each jurisdictions with a set of fields and that content the various information that you may need to understand the tax jurisdiction. And you then have a lot of other national agencies or international organization agencies that provide structured information or documentation on their own legislations. The one that we know best in France, and maybe a lot of them know it too, is le BOFIP, so le Bulletin officiel des finances publiques, that has a lot of structured information, but it's mostly text too, and that's one of the issue about French tax law. And so the biggest problem I talked to you about is the question of being structured versus being unstructured. And as you can see in what I'm projecting right now, is that unstructured information is a lot of text. So basically, when you run an algorithm on it, it's very difficult if it's not consistent and coherent. You are not able to access the hidden information within it. When we talk about structured information, it means that you have a list of fields that you're able to recognize easily with a set of structured possibilities that can be mobilized directly into formulas or into your algorithm. And such structured information is a lot more accessible for automation. And what we have seen in the data that we have met from other providers and any database is that there is no such structured database. Of course, this is a big endeavor to be able to build such a database all around the world for all of the due dates, and especially when they can differ in terms of logic or in terms of content in each jurisdiction. So nobody is blaming the what was happening in the past. It's just that this need for complete automation was not met. We have experienced that at Algonomia through two use cases. Every time it was with a real client for which we were trying to put in place such a calendar automation, but we were not trying to do it the easy way by creating each task manually in our system. No, what we were trying to do is actually basing the automation on this external database. So the first time that we did that was for mostly the TP obligations, and we worked with the client who had access to a license at IBFD, and the idea was to use the data that they had access to in the context of their contract to automate their calendar with it. The problem is, as I explained, this is mostly research-oriented data structure with a lot of text fields from which it's complicated to extract structured information. And so we spent several weeks trying to extract from this structured file the tasks for the client and transform them into actionable elements. And after a few weeks, what we noticed is that it would not be a viable project long-term because the amount of manual treatment necessary to transform the database into something actionable was too long and too costly. And so in the end, we had to drop the project. We had the same analog experience, but in a slightly different way when we worked using the Intela database. Normally, the Intela is not used in such a way for as an API to collect data for automation. It's mostly a list of compliance tasks that can be mobilized during the externalization towards Deloitte of some groups' compliance processes. And so when used in the context of Intela, it works perfectly because it has been built in terms of data structure for that. You have a tax consultant that selects among the task due dates that have been referenced in this database, and they have the ability to, for each entity that they're supposed to manage, to instantiate these tasks and manage them. So it works in their case. However, using this to deduce automatically the tax due dates in a completely automated way without having for each task and each entity someone validating that the task corresponded to the entity was not possible using this database because of the way it was structured. It was, of course, a lot more aligned with our needs than the research database from the IBFD, but the structure was still not well constructed enough. And this time it's the client that decided to not move forward in production because it required internal validation of each task instead of having the ability to automate it. So knowing all of that, it was hard for our company Algonomia to keep on offering these services without rethinking the way that we would identify the right databases. And this is where we decided to build the Open Tax Calendar. So how we decided to Open Tax Calendar was based on one simple and one very clear idea, is that if in the past it was very difficult to start from a text and inject these tests into very identifiable fields with very specific values available for automation, now that there exists some generative AI, actually, if you phrase it correctly, you are able to transform such a text file into this list of structured variables using generative AI. And so this is the research that we started to perform as of last year, and we noticed that we were able to reach important level of precisions, and that we would be able to structure a database based on the data that we would find in textual form to insert it into a target data structure. And so when we decided to invest in this technology, we decided to do it by following the core principles that we have always had at Algonomia and that we are pushing forward. The first principle is to follow the principles of ethical and sustainable AI. What does it mean? It means that it should be completely open. We are not going to train a database, an AI, in a closed form that is going to be a black box that nobody is going to be able to understand. And most importantly, all the source code that we are going to use for this AI is going to be shared in open source. Why? It's because AI has this ability to create unfair disadvantages between some actors depending on the level of resources they have. And we believe at Algonomia that tax law is a public good and that it should be available to each taxpayer and to each company that works in this area the same way. And so because we decided to build it using AI and to share it in open source, we believe that it is a way that will serve the tax community and that will not create more difficulties for the different professionals in this sector to find employment and to be competitive in the future. The other way that we decided to do this project was to make it collaborative. Why? It's because, as you've heard on all of the discussions around AI, sometimes AI hallucinates. Sometimes AI is wrong. And sometimes AI bases its work and takes the work from other professionals. And so the idea is by doing it in an open source manner and sharing it completely. Well, this way, we're not taking work from anybody, but at the same time, by making it collaborative, it becomes a tool that the actual tax professionals can possess and can manage by themselves. And you're going to see a little later what legal framework we're proposing so that it's really built around the community. And finally, the last principle is the one that I was sharing since the beginning. We want it to be automation ready. What it means is that we want any software provider, any multinational enterprise, or even tax administrations to be able to use this data for automation. It's not only about researching an information, it's also about having the ability to regularly call the data using an API. So using your calendar if you want to get directly the information from the OpenTax calendar and update itself automatically. So the data that we produce needs to be ready for that, okay? You can also export everything in Excel or in PDF, but that's a bit less automation ready if you want. And at the same time, we are going to ensure that anybody has enough documentation to understand each variables and use it for automation. So these are the 4 principles that the OpenTax calendar are going to follow: being ethical in the use of AI, being open source so that anybody can understand how everything has been done, being collaborative, meaning that any tax professional has the ability to contribute or to try and push this forward or access the data, and finally, so that it can serve a full automation for M&Es and other software providers. So now let's talk about some of the key use cases that we are going to be able to tackle with the OpenTax calendar. So first and most importantly for everybody else, it is going to be an open source database where you can find these informations that we have extracted from various sources and that you can filter out and find which sources is telling you that you have what obligation in which jurisdiction. So it's basically a database that is completely open and free to find some tax obligations. So that's the first use case. The second use case is that if you have a workflow management system, a tax calendar, or if like us, you want to automate the calendar of one of your clients, you can use our data. And it's not our data, it's the data of the entire tax community because again, it's completely open source. And finally, that's something that we are going to add in the future. We know that a lot of M&Es or smaller companies don't have the resources to install complex workflow management or completely automate them. And for these, we're gonna add some features in the solution so that they can already derive some of their calendar automation directly from the OpenTax calendar. Of course, we need to follow strict confidentiality rules. But if you put some of the key information, end of fiscal year, some financial information, and the presence in some countries, you would be able to have whether or not you are supposed to fill some of the tax obligations that are present in the calendar. So these are the 3 use cases. So now that I talked about all of these principles and use cases, how did we achieve that? The step that we needed to follow was to dream our best possible tax obligation data structure, if you want. So we put ourselves in a room and we asked ourselves, if I wanted to automate the tax calendar of our clients, what information would I need? And we put them in a lot of separate, identifiable, separate, I said separate twice, so you see it's very important, fields with very identifiable possibilities in each field. And this work is one of the key parts of this project because it will inform the next stage of the computation. So to rephrase it, we are putting and building the data structure in which we are going to express each tax obligation and the deadlines, thresholds, and penalties, so that we have all of the characteristics of each tax obligations necessary to use an algorithm to implement them in a workflow. So it's a bit different than finding all of the characteristics to describe them. It's finding all of the characteristics necessary to extract a task and a due date from this data structure. Okay, and to do that, we have a first table that is mostly descriptive. So we have 30 fields of description of each obligation. So we said we put TP here, but it could be go beyond TP later. But the idea, you have, of course, the jurisdiction, the type of obligation, the source, the freshness, meaning how old the information is, the covered fiscal years, because it can change from one year to the other, and other information. You also have a separate table that allows you to describe the deadlines. So how do you compute for each obligation? What is going to be the deadline? And so that's key because it's not as simple as just saying, oh, the deadline is just 30 days after filing my tax return or 6 months after filing my tax return. No, here we are going to cut this information into a lot of separate independent pieces with operators between them so that we are able to compute it automatically. And it's the same thing for the thresholds and the penalties. We have named them to simplify the understanding, but the idea is that in the threshold table, you will find all of the characteristics that are necessary to identify whether or not a legal entity is subject to a given tax obligation. So basically, you can have financial thresholds, you can have combinations of financial thresholds, you can have also legal form, and so on. And finally, a table that will do the same exercise, but to compute the potential penalties of not performing the obligation. And we have performed this work to analyze what type of information we need to structure to be able to automate them. But we know that it will not be perfect, that we may have to add some extra fields, that in some remote jurisdiction that we don't know about or that we are not expert in, there are some other information that we need. And as it is an evolving tool and that it is completely automated even to fill itself, we can add them. So one of the contribution you can have is to come to us and complain that, oh no, you need this more field and this more field, or this combination of field is not enough. And our commitment by contributing to this open tax calendar is ensuring that it becomes perfect, if you want, after a few iterations. Of course, right now, you're going to be able to discover the structure that we have selected and chosen, but it will be evolving, of course. So as a first exercise, we have selected a set of elements or items that we found online that contain some of this textual unstructured data, and that was shared freely, if you want, on the internet, and that was readable by an automated algorithm. We have not scrapped the entire internet. That was not the purpose. What we have done is that we have identified key publications that are completely free and open, directly available on the internet, and we have used them to generate these values. We have not aggregated these values. We have kept the direct reference to each value. So for example, if we have found a value that was in one of the Deloitte's country profile, while you have the link directly to the Deloitte's country profile that presents this information, because the idea is that all of these contributions are awesome, if you want, and it needs to be clear that they are, because you need to see who produced this content and be able to access it, okay? And so we have launched this algorithm to gather the data on these elements. And what we are doing right now is adding as data sources what was available and what is available on each national tax administration website, because these are, if you want, secondary sources in a way. And our purpose would be to be able to build the calendar on primary sources, and this will be part of the improvements that we can make on this open tax calendar. Now, how does it work? As explained, we have identified several documents. Some are in PDF, some are in text forms or HTML, so documents that are shared for free online. What we have done is launched our LLM model on these specific documents, so that for each of the documents, they will try to fill each of the items of this data structure using the information that is contained in each of these files. What it means is that if I'm on the OECD country profile for France and for some reason the section on TP-Doc is empty, then there is going to be a line in our data set where we have empty fields from the trusted party OECD on the TP documentation obligation. This is the idea. Every time the source is clearly identified. And because all of these sources may have very different version of the information, or because the LLM may make errors in its identification of the structured information in each document, we have a next stage that is at this moment automated too, where the algorithm assesses the quality of its answer to the question, what is the value in this field? And there is a feedback loop where every time that the result is not good enough, we try to improve it. The other reason why we generate this evaluation is to share it with the user, and we'll also generate an assessment comparing the various sources to say whether or not this information is absent on some of the jurisdiction. And finally, and this is where the tax community comes, all of this information will be able to be controlled by the tax community and corrected if need be, or additional data sources, for example, the National Tax Administration's data sources can be added to be treated by the algorithm. So you wouldn't need to always do all of the work yourself, but you could, for example, correct the value or add a data source. And in this case, we would be able to continue improving the algorithm and its results. And in the end, what we're building is a list of references and values for a given source, and that's key. You will see that when we go in the demo, we always identify what is the source of each information. Now let's talk about this question of open source governance and community before going into the demo. It's very difficult to manage a collaborative solution online for several reasons. The first reason is, and I'm sure it's not going to be the case with the tax community, but in other parts of the internet, as soon as you open something to the contribution, you can have trolls or people who have ill intents in feeding the database. And that's why, in order to use the solution, or in order to contribute to the solution and to its values, people are going to have to be logged through their LinkedIn account. Of course, it's very minimal. You just click on authenticate with LinkedIn, but it just means that you need to be connected through LinkedIn to access the data set. The reason we do that is because we don't want contributors acting in bad faith. And if they're logged through LinkedIn, we at least know that they are real people, that they're not bots, and that they are working in a very transparent way. The other reason why we need to identify the users is that it's also going to be our way to generate the unique API keys that will allow to request the data directly for full automation if you want to go this way. As I explained, you will be able to rate the data or propose corrections and additional sources, and you will also be able to request changes in the functionalities. These are not all the things that someone can do in an open source project. If you're a coder or developer, you can contribute to the code. But as we're talking mostly to tax professionals, we know that it's not the most likely contribution to the project. So now I'm gonna move on to the demo. It's gonna be very simple, and I will show you around some of the features. Let me share the screen. So right now there is an address, taxcalendar.algonomia.com. It's not useful for you to try using it because it's still closed. But at the end of the session, you will be able to use the opentaxcalendar.com URL to access the solution directly. So here on the landing page, what you can see is the completion level. So that's the average completion on all the jurisdictions that are present. And as you can see, on some jurisdiction, the completion level can vary. And once you're here, you can use connect to log in, and it will request you to connect using your LinkedIn account. So this is what I'm doing. And now I'm logged in. And once I'm logged in, I have this new element that appears that allows me to access the dashboard. Of course, there is the API access, but it will not be open right now. We're going to wait until September for that, but I'm going to share with you the entire calendar. And you also have an about section with all of the obligatory legal elements like the CGUs. I didn't show to you the section where you have to accept some of the terms of use, but you will have the ability to read it directly when you log in first. Now I'm opening the dashboard. It is something very simple, meaning that you have a word map with the various jurisdictions on which we have data, and you have the ability to click on a jurisdiction and see a country profile. If you want to have more space to see each of the section, you can enlarge it, or you can expand the way that you want to see the structured data. You have the ability to export the information for a given jurisdiction, either in Excel here or as a PDF next to the jurisdiction information. And you have the ability to select the jurisdiction on which you want to see this information. You can also select the obligation that you want to look at and the source if we have several possible sources. We can see here that some of this information has been extracted from the EY Worldwide Transfer Pricing Reference Guide, or here you will have the same information when extracted from the OECD Transfer Pricing Country Profile. And you can see what type of data we have been able to extract from this specific source. Now let's focus a bit more on the table below. Sorry, I'm gonna make it a bit bigger. As you can see in this table, you have fields here where you can see the source. And if you look closely, you see that master file is present several times, such as local file. Why? It's because what we want to do is present the various sources and the way each source present the values that have been extracted. Okay. Now let's see what types of information are present. You can see what are the values that we interpret from each. And what is interesting is that sometimes the information is not extracted the same way for each jurisdiction. That's why if we look at the end of the sorry, here, you can see the reliability score that we have generated and the explanation of the reliability score that we have generated. So if I sort by reliability score, I will see that per our assessment, but this is something that can be further developed. The KPMG Global Transfer Pricing Review has been assessed as being the most precise. And again, this is not saying anything about the actual content, but this is about the way we were able to extract the information. And you have the description of all of the information that has been extracted. And if you click on it, you will have more detailed information. So here it has not been found. That's explained that sometimes you have structured data that is not present and you have a completion level. And so here you can see that for the deadlines, we have been able to fill some fields like the reference event is upon request, and you have the description in separate elements of the actual due dates and how we are supposed to be able to compute it. And if you click on another source, you will have the same information, but translated into another format. So for example, here, if I'm clicking on the OECD, I have a more comprehensive due date computation. But the idea is that it's referenced in a different manner. And so here you can see I have the information on the thresholds and on the way to compute it. And this is it, okay? You don't have more information than that in this software. Again, it's an access to a structured database that allows you to see from each data sources what we have been able to extract. What we are working on right now is adding a line here that would quote the Bulletin officiel des finances publiques in France. And when you click on it, you, instead of ending up on the reference document here, you would end up on the National Tax Administration website. And we have currently started hiring someone to work with us on identifying each National Tax Administration source for each obligation. And that will be, of course, a progressive project. If you want to contribute to it, of course, you're welcome. So that's it for the demo. It may seem quite simple, but it's already a lot of work. And of course, we're going to continue working on it. I'm going to go back to the slides. Sorry. So now we're going to talk a bit about what it means to organize such a project. So the first question is, what is the legal framework? What we are showing to you, the open tax calendar, it is not a product. It has no price. It's free. It has no commercial purpose. And so therefore, instead of hosting it in terms of management in our company Algonomia, we have founded a non-profit organization that we call the Open Tax Society. The reason we've done that is that we want to make it clear that it is a collaborative project. It is not owned by Algonomia. It is owned by the tax community, and any tax professional can join us and contribute and be part of the project. So people who can be members or any tax professionals from anywhere and any organization, any individual or public or private organization. And of course, we would be really happy if some tax administrations are willing to become members and contribute. We are also expecting to maybe interact with some academic institutions. And in terms of management of the intellectual property, we have at Algonomia produced the source code of the entire project, and it is in open source. It's and under the license GNU AGPL. This means in terms of license that anybody can reuse the code, but if they complete it or if they make it better or correct it, they need to share it again in open source. And finally, the Open Tax Society will have the license on all of the data that we have produced and will hold it, and it will be shared in Creative Commons. It is the same type of license that corresponds to the content of Wikipedia, but the slight difference is that we don't want any organization to be able to derive profits from the work that everybody here may put in the Open Tax Society. So we have chosen the NC, non-commercial SA, meaning that if you add to the work, you need to share it in open source too. So how you can contribute yourself to the project? So first, you can become a user. What does it mean? Well, you can log in and use the functionalities. You can also request an API key starting in September if you want to automate your calendar. You can share about it, of course, and talk about the project to other tax professionals. And if you wish, you will be able to do that as soon as September 2, directly in the application or by contacting us if you want. You can criticize the current data structure and propose improvements. You can give feedback on each of the data points, or you can propose alternate data sources for the generation of each data point. If you want to go beyond that, you can become a main partner and be named directly on the homepage or in the About section of this Open Tax Calendar. The reason why we're proposing that is because as a shared open source project, it may require funding. And as we have created an association, at least for societies and for corporations that are based in France or in Europe, there is the possibility to claim some tax credits if you either give the financial donations directly or if you do some pro bono for the associations. So that can be something interesting. If you need this data and you want to spend time on it, it means that you can share it and it will benefit the Open Tax Society. And finally, if you want, you can become an active member of the Open Tax Society. And the idea for us is to create something completely collaborative. In terms of calendars, as I've explained, right now we are sharing the first version after this webinar to all of you. You will be able to access the database, look at the data, access the dashboard, and all of this free of charge. We will also open the applications for membership. You can contact us at the associations and at the coordinate of the associations provided on the about of the association in order to either become member of the association or become main partners of the Open Tax Calendar project. As of September, there will be the first publication about the contribution partners, so law firms that are already working with us to correct some of the data points and make it better, or any other partner that will manifest in the meantime. So far, it's 2 law firms that are working with us to make the data set better. Then we will also open all of the collaborative features, so any user will be able to contribute, and this contribution will be publicized. So if, for example, you are a dedicated lawyer who corrects for given jurisdictions or a lot of the data points and propose a lot of sources, you will have feedback on it. We will publicize that you contributed to the project. The idea is that everybody who contributes will be shown as a contributor. The elements that are here is also that you will be able to start configuring the calendar to be a bit more customized to your needs. And we will also open the API in September. So it will be a second launch, if you want, in terms of functionality for complete automation. In September, we will start gathering the information directly from the national tax administrations. websites, because we have someone joining our team who will work on that. And we are planning, but this may require additional funding because we will put that for free, and this has some extra costs. We will put an AI chatbot that will help you extract the right information if you want to work on that. So the idea is that right now it's really interesting to use a chatbot to discuss with a database using some of the RAG models that exist. But the idea is that we are planning to implement one. But when you have a live chatbot, it has some costs in terms of servers. And the idea is that we will need the association to have some budget to be able to pay for the servers. Of course, the source code that we're going to build for that is going to still be open source and free. It's just the servers management. And starting in September, you will have the ability to give us some feedback, and we are going to work on additional features. And the idea is that starting in 2026, if the project is a success, we plan to add elements beyond and tax obligations beyond transfer pricing to move towards CIT in general, corporate income tax in general, VAT, and other topics. If you have topics that are more important for you, don't hesitate to push them forward, because again, this is a collaborative project. We have worked on a prospective budget. It's an analysis. Right now, it's mostly Algonomia who has provided a lot of the funds. So we have managed the setup of the association and the legal management, paid some of the legal fees. We have developed most of the branding and the website that you will have the access to. And we are providing right now the hosting for the services. So right now, this has a cost that we will manage by ourselves. And we have also identified the costs that we would need to move forward on some of the features. Here you can see the additional hosting cost that we will have to provide an AI chatbot on this database. So if any law firm or consulting firm wants to be part of the project and contribute to it, this would be the sum that we would need to be able to provide it as an extra elements. And same thing, we would be very interesting to be able to promote this open tax calendar in international settings. Like there is the IFA conference in Lisbon. We are going as Algonomia, but it would be interesting to have a booth to promote the open tax calendar for the entire tax community and some other elements. And so basically the idea is that this will be a completely separate budget that is only for the Open Tax Society, that will be managed by the tax community and to which anybody can contribute. Finally, the Open Tax Calendar will not be the last initiatives that we want to have through the Open Tax Society. Right now, we've worked on the Open Tax Calendar, but we are building what we want to call the open tax systems, meaning the mathematical description of all the tax systems in each jurisdiction very precisely to be able to automate tax computations in each jurisdiction. We are also going to build what we called the open tax data, meaning gathering from all the public sources all of the tax information on most of the taxpayers and most of the jurisdictions to be able to have a shared repository and make this open source again. We're also going to include in all of these applications, like I just explained, an open tax AI that will be able to feed and look in all of these data sets that we're building. And finally, we are building an open TP benchmark that will be a solution where tax professional can load the benchmarks that they've proposed and be referenced to have been loading them, and so be referenced as their contributor, so that there are sets of benchmarks readily and freely available as Creative Commons on the internet. So to all of these projects, if you want to be part of them, contact us. If you want to be the head of them and be one of the main contributors of any of these projects, again, this is a collaborative element, and anybody can work on any of these projects and be part of it if they want to. They just need to contact to us and organize it with us. So this is it for the presentation. When the presentation is over, I recommend you try to connect to the OpenTax calendar on the link that we will provide, and you will be able to join and connect. So now I will open the floor to some questions if you have, if you want to know about, if you have questions to ask for us directly. So I'm gonna look at the Q&R. So there is a questions about whether or not the presentation is being recorded and will be shared. Yes, the presentation has been recorded and will be shared on our social media, and you will have access to it directly. We will send you a link. Don't hesitate to ask questions. I see that some people have. No, it was about audio. I'm gonna wait 2 minutes to see if there are more questions. Really, don't hesitate. You can ask any of them. Okay, so I really do not see any additional questions in the Q&A session. So the link to the OpenTax calendar will be shared right now in the chat. Thank you for. So I have a remark from Job the Last from Keynes saying that it's a great initiative. Thank you, and you are welcome to contribute if you want to. It would be very great. So I'm sharing right now in the chat the direct link to the OpenTax calendar. It may not be completely up and running right now if you try, but it will be very soon if it's not. And after that, we're gonna make we are going to make an additional post on LinkedIn so that everybody has the link. And so yes, I'm going to repeat it. Everybody will have access to this presentation in video. So I have a question from Gilles Vincent Dulaurier, who asked me if we are planning to add some legal topic in the project later. We may, but right now we don't have much experience outside of tax and most of the time international tax. So if you want to contribute on this specific point, do not hesitate to reach out to us, and we can of course extend the idea. I see another question. I see. Is it possible to add more information other than threshold, etc., that are listed in the table you showed? So yes, so far the data structure is set, but we don't consider it as rigid and finite. Of course, there will be retrocompatibility, but do not hesitate to share additional elements that we should add in the data structure, or contact us directly if you have additional ideas that you think we should involve. And we will, of course, credit you for these contributions. There is a question about whether there will be APIs towards commercial tools. And so the question depends on the direction. If commercial tools will be able to gather the data from the OpenTax calendar to feed their solution, yes, they will have the ability to gather the data. If we plan to gather data ourselves with the OpenTax calendar from commercial tools, the answer is no, because we want the data to be completely open source, meaning shared in Creative Commons. So the data that will be shared in our tool is only extracted from publicly available information, and it will be available to anybody using a licensed Creative Commons. I do not see any additional questions, so I propose that we finish the presentation. Thanks to all of you to have joined, and do not hesitate to reach out if you want to be part of this project. All right, so thank you guys, and see you soon.